Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ohio State Buckeyes live call-in show. I'm your co-host Ryan Stano.
I'm Garrison Gaddy.
Well, Garrison, it's almost here. We've only got a couple more days. Obviously, this specific show is a caller-driven show. So if there's anything you guys want to hear us talk about, please drop it in the comments. We'll go ahead and drop the link in there as well if you want to call in. I know there's been a couple things that have happened since we last spoke though on Monday. And the first thing I want to actually talk about is we know where a former Buckeye is going to be playing his college football next year.
Yeah.
And I saw that actually Miles Walker had committed to Boise State, which I thought was an interesting decision, interesting choice. So he's going to the number 3 seeded Broncos. What'd you make of that choice?
Disappointing. It's a needed position. But I'm not surprised by it. Again, like when we talked about last time, I think we kind of both agreed on this. There's still guys on the Ohio State offensive line that could play themselves into the starting roles this playoff. It looks like Luke Montgomery's on his way to doing it.
Yeah.
For Austin, maybe so. He kind of won me back last week. I'm not gonna. Last week, so I'm not gonna lie about that. But it sucks. But I'm not too worried about it. It's not something that grinds my gears per se.
Yeah, I mean, we knew he was obviously going to leave for the portal, and a Mountain West spot that seems about right. We don't have much film on him, like we don't know how good he is. But here's my take: if he couldn't really crack the rotation on the current starting offensive line and what they got going on, that means it's not a huge loss because it's not like these guys are world beaters out there, minus Seth and Josh, obviously, who they've lost.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer.
It only hurts the depth.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's something that is obviously a big issue. But the big thing is the game. And that's coming up here a couple days on Wednesday. And, I've thought about it more since we've last talked. I've seen you've thought about it more. I saw you changed your prediction, actually.
Today.
I saw on social media. So let's go ahead and start with that. And I want to know why you went ahead and flipped your prediction. Tell the people, for those who didn't know, what your original prediction was and what you're changing it to now.
I didn't have a score, but from the time the playoff happened up until today, I had Oregon beating Ohio State. It simply came down to yes, offensive line played good last week. I don't know if it's going to happen again. Now where it changed. I think that Ohio State is doing things on offense, specifically through the pass game, that is going to put Oregon in a bind. Their linebacker, Jackson's a good athlete, but their linebackers are not that great in coverage. And Jeremiah has been in the slot a lot more, doing crossing routes, a la 2021, or I'm sorry, 2018 Ohio State, and he has free release. My biggest reason, I just can't see Denzel Burke playing that bad again. I just can't. And, I don't like taking the guy's worst performance or his best performance. I like to take the averages of where players or teams are usually around. And Denzel Burke is still one of the best corners in college football. After that Oregon game, man, we haven't given a passing touchdown. Less than 900 yards receiving we've given up. So, with that being said, I think with him playing how he usually does, our passing game being a little bit more strategic in what we do, also not doing what we did a few games ago and having closed sets or tight sets, and then also what we did in the run game, I thought against Tennessee was very cool to see. A lot of bodies moving around the offensive line, guys moving bodies, going toward the outside, running counters, running gap scheme, as we both said they need to be doing. Those are all things that, yes, Oregon has saw it. They have the film on it now. But I believe that Those are the reasons Ohio State's going to win this game. The score I had was 33-31.
Yeah.
And it's not because Jaden Fielding gets a last-second field goal. That is not why we win.
Yeah. Although I did hear a report today that apparently Fielding hit a 56-yarder in practice, which bully for him, in practice. I'd like to see something like that in a game. But, you make some good points, and those are the same sort of things that I've seen. And, specifically looking over the Tennessee film again, I think it's almost to the point where you kind of have to throw out the Michigan tape just because it was an outlier and because of how poorly they've played against Michigan in each of the last 4 years. I don't think you can take obviously it counts. It was a game they should have won. It was the least talented Michigan team they've played in 4 years, but there's clearly something mental going on with this team in Michigan.
Yeah.
So Oregon's not coming out in wing helmets. I mean, they might have wings on them, but they're not going to be the Michigan helmet. So I think the offensive scheme is going to be able to have their way. I think they are going to make sure that they have some more things shored up defensively, because obviously the first matchup, there were so many things that went wrong, specifically on the defensive side of the ball and really in the secondary. But it wasn't just the secondary's fault. They couldn't get any pressure on Gabriel. I mean, Dylan Gabriel had a picnic in the pocket every time he stepped back to pass.
He did.
So I think those two things need to change. And I think one of them kind of feeds the other. If Ohio State can get pressure with their front four, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of the secondary, specifically those corners, Denzel Burke, Jermaine Matthews, Hancock, Igbinosun. So, I'm really interested to see how this game starts early, because I think we're going to get an indication defensively how Ohio State is going to try to slow down Oregon. And I think that's kind of where this game is going to be won or lost, whether or not Ohio State's new revamped defense is settled down from allowing those big plays to happen like they did in the first game. I think that's where this game's won or lost.
Is there anything that you're worried about?
Yes, I am worried about still allowing big plays, defensively, and the offensive line. We've talked about this really since McLaughlin went down. The Tennessee game was great. It was great offensive line play, but I'm I need to see more. I need to see it happen at least one more time. And with those two guys that they've got up front with Birch and Uiagalelei, I mean, those guys are real dudes.
Yeah.
And those guys are players who can wreck the pocket, and not just in the passing game. They can move the offensive line back in the run game too. So those are guys I'm worried about. And obviously the special teams, but that goes without saying. That's a concern every game. But I do think this team is talented enough to overcome those a la Tennessee. What about you?
My biggest concern is getting pressure. If we can get pressure without blitzing. Now, we've had a lot of success getting to the quarterback when we blitz, rather than be running a stunt and then sending one guy, which I do expect us to do in this game. But how many times do we have to do that in order just to get to the quarterback, or at least get in his face? It is not even about getting there from the edge. On the offensive line, their weakness is the interior of their offensive line. We need guys like Tyleek and Ty to have big games. We do. I expect McDonald to get in this game. I expect Edric Houston to get some snaps. Those guys have to play really good, and they need to take advantage of that mismatch that we have. And then also just on the edge, stopping them from running the ball towards the outside. They like to run the ball to the left a lot. And so that's on JTT's that's on him. That's on you to go against Connolly Jr., who's one of the best tackles in the nation, and have a good game. Show that you are one of the best defensive ends in this country. And that's why I want to see from them. And that's what worries me.
Yeah. I mean, and we talked about the fact that it seemed like the Tennessee game was the first time we'd seen JTT and Sawyer really kind of play well in the same game.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I would really like to see happen in this game. I also saw today, Will Howard was talking to the media, and he was talking about how against Tennessee they played pissed off. They had pissed off energy, and they were angry, and they needed to kind of carry the same energy for the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And I want to hear your thoughts on that, because while I do agree, I also think, they can play with a chip on their shoulder, but if they play too angrily, just kind of blinded, if they use too much emotion, that is when mistakes happen. That's just
Yeah.
the fact. So, what do you make of his comment there?
Yeah. That's actually something that's been on my mind, whether Will tries to overcompensate for the mistake that he had at the end of the game in the first game when we played them.
Yep.
In football, you have to have controlled chaos. That's how you win football games. And you can play angry, but you gotta keep a level head, man. You gotta keep a level head to the game. Don't get too up, don't get too down, even kill, and don't try to do too much. Stay within your game, let the game come to you. When it's time to attack the game, you do it. But
Yep.
I don't mind the quote, but Will. But
yeah, I know. He needs to he definitely does feel a lot of responsibility for what happened in the first matchup. I mean, he mentioned it during talking to the media. He said he still has some nightmares about that final drive and how it ended, and how it was on him that he didn't get down fast enough.
Yeah.
But, like you said, I don't want him necessarily carrying that, into this game. I want that to kind of be in the past. I don't want that to be in the forefront of his mind where he's got to think, oh, I've got to be the hero because I screwed up last time. You know what I mean?
Right.
He needs to keep doing what he did against Tennessee, which is get the ball out to Jeremiah Smith, get the ball out to Emeka Egbuka, have some decent runs, stabilize the team. So that's what I'm looking for from him. I don't need him to be the best player on the field. The best player on the field is Jeremiah Smith. You need to get the ball to him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most concerned about.
I mean, speaking about Jeremiah, I mean, he was asked about that that OPI at the end of the game, and
yeah.
Now, listen, man, I feel him because even when it happened, my thought process was, the corner engaged first, put his hands on him. So for Jeremiah, hey, he's 6'3", 220. You're going up against a 5'9", 180-pound corner. So I always said that I believe the reason that the official made that call was because of how crazy it looked. Like of him just throwing that guy 5 yards. Whereas I didn't really believe it was OPI, but
it was a flop. Let's just call it what it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
And he has learned from that experience also. He's gotten a little bit, he knows how to make those moves a little bit more subtle. So he can get some separation from the defensive backs where it doesn't look like he's using both hands to push off. So, I think that's good. And if he is able to, it's not just him. If the team in general is able to keep themselves from having those big mistake penalties that can either kill drives or sustain drives for Oregon, a big offensive pass interference. I mean, that put them back behind the sticks. That ended up being a drive killer. If Igbenogson has too many pass interference penalties and on third down and Ohio State can't get off the field, those are drive killers. If they can avoid those kinds of penalties, I think this game really turns in the favor of Ohio State, because me as a fan, I'm kind of baking those in to my prediction anyway, because we've seen all season that's what happened. Last game was the first time we've seen them really play a clean game.
Yeah, and something else to take away from that game, I was just talking about with Bryce. We had them at 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 a few times in that game. And then they would either get it or some of those big plays came off of those. Those are opportunities where Ohio State has got the field. I thought there were times in that game where Ohio State could have taken control. They go up and then they get back on the offense, and Junkins gets stripped away from the ball from a great play from Derek Harmon.
Yeah.
Times like that. Coming out of halftime, they stop Oregon, get the ball back, don't score. You get a goal line stand. Yes, you're on your own side. You're close to your end zone, but that was a chance to take a 2-score game.
Yep.
or two-score lead. And they didn't do that. And this, and those are chances you got to make. When you get that chance to go big on a team, you got to do it. Because I truly believe that if Ohio State gets a 10-point lead, we win. I don't think you come back from 10 points in Ohio State, not with that defense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good point. They had opportunities to kind of, I don't want to say put them away, because Oregon's a really high-powered offense where they certainly could have come back from a multi-touchdown deficit, but it makes things a lot tougher. And you're right, they weren't able to do that. So I'm really hoping that changes here in the Rose Bowl. And by the way, we normally have the call-in show on Thursday, but figured we're gonna be talking a lot about the game on Thursday, so it won't be a whole lot of opportunities for calls. So figured we want to have it today. And see, we got someone on queue here. He's working his microphone here, so once he's ready, we can bring him in. But this, as far as that Quinshon Judkins fumble, I thought was a huge moment in that game.
Yes,
where all of a sudden, because once that happened, they really stopped feeding him, which I get it.
You wouldn't touch my ball again. You ain't touched the ball again to me.
And let's be real, he's been the more explosive running back between him and Trey this year. He has been the guy who can take the ball 60 yards to the house, 50 yards. He doesn't. If he gets
the end of the season.
Well, here the last game against Tennessee, Trey was able to do that. That was really the first time I'd seen him do something like that. But early on in the season, when they were, when this game was played, it had been Judkins had been doing that. So he's got to hold on to the football, and that was his only fumble. He didn't fumble again after that. So
is that the only fumble between those two this season?
I think it might be.
Yeah.
So they've done a really good job of holding on the ball. The only turnovers have happened, Will, and those have been some not great turnovers in spots. So. I'll go ahead and bring in Sean here. He's calling in. Hey, Sean, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Not much. Just enjoying the last couple days before the big showdown here. Happy to see you guys on.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. What's on your mind? What do you think?
Oh, not much. I want to ask you guys a very general question first. Which side of the ball do you think is more important to winning this game? So I don't think there's a clear answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garrison, what do you think? If you need more time to think, I've got my answer kind of locked and loaded. I think it's the defense. Quite frankly, I think it's the defense because of what we saw in the first matchup between these two. That was a performance that shaped the rest of what Ohio State did on defense. They rebuilt the defense from really the bottom up. And once that happened, this team really locked in on that side of the ball. I mean, they still have not allowed another team to score more than 20 points since that game. We saw them really crush Tennessee's hopes and dreams in that first quarter. I mean, Ohio State's offense, they did the work of going up 21-0, but with the fact is Tennessee still had 0. And once they realized they weren't going to be able to score on the defense and after with the offense, that game was over 10 minutes into the game. So if Ohio State's defense is able to contain what Oregon does best, and I'm really concerned with Dylan Gabriel's ability to make things happen in the pocket, because like I said, that first game, he just kind of sat in the pocket for as long as he wanted. They didn't really make him move, and he can move. So I really think the defense is going to be I don't think there's going to be any question now that what we've seen from the game, really from the game plan against Tennessee, that offense, they're going to call it wide open because there's nothing to lose. So I'm more worried about the execution of the defense. What about you, Garrison?
Yeah, so I'm going to stay on the same side of the ball, but I'm going to specifically go with the front seven. I think that it's very important that we don't let Jordan James run through us like a hot knife through butter, because that's what happened in the first game. And then also with was it Sadiq and Ferguson, their tight ends, 2 really good tight ends. Over the year, our linebackers have been very good in coverage. I think there's through Simon, Reese, and Sonny, they have like 13 pass deflections. But with those guys, knowing what they have on the outside, you have to keep those tight ends contained, because if you're able, say there's a play where you shut down those corners, right? Or there's just no one open in the 15 yards out and on the boundary. Dylan Gabriel's really good at making time. And he's really patient, and he plays very well. Even though he gets to play out most plays off fast, he can read well. He finds those guys pretty easily usually. And so, I think just that, the run game and the run defense, I'm going to go with the front seven.
Yep.
No. And something I've noticed watching a lot of Oregon the past couple of years is in almost every game they play, they're really good at finding like the matchups they want, the weaknesses on the defense, and they just hammer it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we saw in that first matchup.
And then they can do it basically any different way. If if your team's having trouble defending the middle, they'll just slant and RPO you to death. If you're a little weak up front, they'll run it down your throat. Against us, they were like, okay, we got one-on-one matchups we like outside. We'll just take a bunch of shots this game.
Yeah. And
whatever vulnerability you're showing, like they're just exceptional at exploiting it. So
I agree with you, Sean. And we saw that in the first matchup when Denzel Burke, they just picked on him all game long. Didn't really matter who he was covering, whether it was Tez Johnson or one of the other wide receivers they had. They were just going right at him, and he really didn't have an answer for him. So I think Jim Knowles is going to have a very short leash with his corners. I think if one of them is getting burned too much, you can see him yanked in the first quarter or second quarter, and you won't see him out there again.
Coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And Jermaine Matthews, he might have a lot of playing time in this game.
I saw he didn't get a single snap against Oregon the last time.
Nope.
Yeah. That's what I saw.
And Garrison was not happy about that. I remember post game.
Yeah.
No, but luckily over the last month, he's been playing a lot, and he comes in for both of them. And so
I think they're mostly concerned about the physicality with Matthews out there. He's not the best tackler. We've got 2, 3 if you count Hancock, exceptional tackling corners. And there's a big drop off if you bring Matthews in, especially against a team like Oregon that gets the ball out quick. You miss a tackle on a 5-yard slant that can go.
Yeah. I would rather give up a quick 5-yard slant and have Caleb Downs clean that up than having a guy out there who necessarily isn't going to cover the deep shots as much. I think Ohio State will take Oregon trying to get a lot of yak in this game just because of the way they're going to attack Oregon's offense. I know Garrison mentioned earlier that he thinks a big key to this game is how well the front four is going to be able to get pressure, without blitzing. I think, while I do agree with that, I still don't think Ohio State is going to turn from what they have succeeded with the last, really since this game, and that's been bringing more pressure from the linebackers. Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, and even they brought Caleb Downs up a few times. Yeah. I think they're going to have a more of a complex game plan here. And I also think I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of zone. Just because I don't think they want to get beat deep with man-to-man coverage. And Oregon will probably do the same on their side. They're going to play a lot of zone because they're terrified of Jeremiah Smith, which makes sense.
And Sean, you brought up a name, Jordan Hancock. He's not – I don't think there's been a lot of talk about him, but he has a big assignment there at the nickel position with Tez Johnson.
Yes.
Whether it be him or I don't like seeing Ransom in coverage or man-to-man. But then Caleb Downs coming down on whatever play. But Jordan Hancock, that's going to be his guy. More times than not, that's going to be his assignment. So, and honestly, between him, Igbenogson, and Burke, I think he's been the best of the 3 starting corners this season.
Yeah.
So,
that's been the story of the last couple of seasons, especially last year when he beat out Hartford for that nickel job. He's been excellent in that role ever since, and he's terrific in run support. He's an awesome blitzer whenever we bring that nickel blitz. And
I'll say he's a consistent corner. I still think when he's at his best, I think Burke has shown he can be a really good corner when he's playing his best. Just this year, he really hasn't. But last year we saw flashes of him being a truly elite corner. And if Igbenogson doesn't get too physical with guys, he can make. I mean, we saw that pick he made against Penn State was sick. There's not a lot of guys that can have a one-handed snag like that. While covering the guy, face to face. So, but Hancock's definitely
after getting beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wanted to talk about a bit about the bringing pressure with the front four, I want to respectfully take a different path than Garrison's notion. I want to see us bring a lot of exotic pressure early in this game. One is especially if it's successful, then you have the matchups you need to exploit, and at least you're not giving Dylan Gabriel 8 seconds in the pocket. Like that's not going to happen if you're bringing enough guys. And secondly, I thought in the first half the offensive line they were so comfortable for Oregon in that game. Like they knew where the pressure was coming from. They knew they could just take their pass sets, and they were just so confident and on rhythm. And if you start bringing pressure early and you start mixing up your looks, that makes the offensive line play a little bit slower, and then I think that will benefit the team, even if you pull back from the aggression in the second half. The D line is going to benefit from what you do early in the game.
Yeah. No. So
I agree with Sean. Thanks for the call here. We got I think some other people are going to jump in here. I appreciate calls here, Sean. Garrison, go ahead and take that because I know you had talked about specific to the front four. So.
Yeah, so I actually don't necessarily disagree with Sean. The only where I'm at with it is it just depends on when we do it. Do it more strategically. Like on those situations where we had, so if you had them at, let's say it's 2nd and 7, that's a time when I'm like, oh no, don't bring the house, but send 2 extra, because they're either gonna two things are gonna happen. They're going to run the ball to get, see if they can get, 3-4 more yards and make it a 3rd and short, or they're going to try and, maybe try and get like a 5 to 10-yard route concept between the receivers. That's when I'd be like, okay, have your corners impress 3 to 5 yards off, and then send some guys like exotic stunts. And send a few, but no, yeah. I mean, if it's successful, do it. But you gotta hope that your corners are on those receivers like glue.
And that's kind of where I do want to see them bring some pressure, like they've done, where they can bring 2 extra guys, maybe bring in a stunt, to help. Not because Sean's right about the offensive line. Our offensive line was very comfortable. They seemed to know exactly where Ohio State's guys were coming from, and they built a huge pocket where Gabriel could, step in. He could step into all of his throws. He really didn't face much pressure in that game at all. Mm-hmm. And you do have to get him moving a little bit, and that we've seen that's when he makes those mistakes near the red zone. I point to that Michigan State game. He had 2 interceptions in the red zone in that game, and it's because he was rolling out of the pocket, trying to make something else happen. And then he tried to force some throws. So he does have the tendency to, make those mistakes if you can fluster him. But I don't want to see them necessarily bring in, 7 or 8 guys, on a first down or anything like that. I agree with you. It's got to be situational, and it's got to be what I could see happening. I think this is gonna be a fascinating chess game, quite frankly, between Oregon's offense and Ohio State's defense, because I could see them start bringing in blitzing, start bringing in some blitzes, and all of a sudden Gabriel takes off because there's gonna be an open area for him, and Ohio State doesn't have a spy, and all of a sudden he starts getting 9-8 yard chunks, and then they're gonna have to adjust it.
He can do it.
Yeah, he certainly can.
20 plus.
He certainly can. So I think. I do think the front four is going to have to bring pressure by themselves at some points in this ball game, but they're also going to. I mean, they're going to keep bringing extra guys just because it will be different, and I do think it can fluster even a guy like him in certain down and distances.
Let's go to the offensive side for a second.
Yeah.
How many targets do you want Jeremiah to have, or how many do you think he should have?
As many as possible. Look, in the first game, he had 9 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he needs to be around a similar vein in that area, because he's the best player we have, quite frankly. And you want to get him. You want to get the ball to him as much as possible. I mean, what do you think?
I would say somewhere around the 10 number would be nice. I would have to assume that something I actually want to see. This season he's done a lot of reverses. I wonder if they're saving something out of that. But a name that I really want to see, like, even though I want Jeremiah to get around, like I would say 8, 9, or 10. I think that Cardinal Tate needs to have a pretty good game. In that first one, he wasn't targeted a lot, and he hasn't been targeted a lot this season. But I think that for him being the third guy that we usually go to, and like you might say, we don't have any wide receiver 2s or 3s. We have wide receiver 1s on our team, which I understand that. I believe that also.
Yep.
I think if Cardinal Tate is able to get going in this game, that's a good sign, right? That's a good sign for Ohio State.
I agree with you. I also, and I mean, let's make no bones about it. I mean, everyone on the offense is going to have to play their best because they've got an explosive offense on the other side that's going to be tough to deal with. So, you want to get Jeremiah the ball as much as possible, and I agree with you as far as those end arounds go. They don't have to throw it to him necessarily 10 times, but just try to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
So if it is an end around, quick wide receiver screen, something like that. So they can go ahead and have that threat of just the ball in his hands, kind of like when Braxton Miller was an H-back. Just if someone like Jeremiah just has the ball in his hands, good things are going to happen. So I do think Chip Kelly is probably going to get creative, in this game based on, I quite frankly, I think they probably left a lot of stuff in the tank from the Tennessee game that they didn't need to empty because of how quickly that game got out of hand. So if this game ends up, and I think we both expect it to be close, then I think we're going to see some stuff maybe we've never even seen before.
No, most definitely. And then also just, taking away what they did in the last game. Will is very comfortable when he gets on the outside, running, throwing the ball on the run. I thought that was really good, smart of Chip Kelly to do that. It looked as though guys are running scot-free. Now, do I think they're going to do the same against Oregon? Because no, Oregon's secondary is better than Tennessee's. 175 pass yards per game that they give up, which is really good. It's really good. So, but I just think that when we get the pocket moving, because we're not so much, I think that our offensive line is not as good when their feet are set. When they're sitting there and he's in the pocket. Now, can they do it? Yes. Like, even though we've been bashing on our offensive line all game, for some odd reason they've been better at pass blocking than they have been run blocking. But you get him moving. As we talked about earlier, move Jeremiah. I don't think there's anyone that can keep up with him on this defense when he's running across the field. So actually that showed in the first game, because I remember one of Jeremiah's his only touchdown in that game. Will Howard got out of the pocket, rolled to his right. He's running right across the field from the left side and gets the touchdown. So I think that would be the way to go. And also, of course, getting him Mecca the ball. That's you got to get him the ball.
Do you expect Ohio State to do more in the quarterback run game? Because we really haven't seen that all season, and we saw Kansas State has got the capability to do it.
Yes, I think that the over under was 6. I would take it.
Okay,
I would take it.
Now, are you talking designed runs, or are you talking like total including scrambles?
Total runs, scrambles.
Okay.
Design runs probably around 2 or 3. Against Tennessee, I think he had 2 design runs in that game. and they worked out very well. I mean, Will Howard can run the ball.
Yeah, he's a fast dude.
I refer to it all the time. I mean, the dude ran 70 yards for a touchdown against Texas 2 years ago. So he has the capability to do it. So
in the spring, they showed he could run for over 20 miles an hour. I mean,
yeah,
he was.
When they said he was the fastest quarterback, I was amazed.
Yeah, he was. And I do think this is the kind of game where we could see them use him more in the run game, just because, again, it's going to be a really close. Like, these two teams are evenly matched as far as talent is concerned. Mm-hmm. This is the first time where I felt like Ohio State is not the more talented team on the field. So it's, Oregon's undefeated for a reason. They're a really freaking good team. So
the best team all year, bar none, none,
for sure. And they deserve all of the flowers that they get because no one's beating them. So this is the kind of game where, and we talked about this last week against Tennessee, you can't come out scared. You got to kind of go no holds barred. And if you lose because you're being too aggressive, that's something I can live with.
Yeah. And like this comment from Montana 808 Beats.
Yeah.
Are you guys scared of this game? And are you thinking of how to lose this game? Like Montana, you weren't in here earlier. Yeah. I thought Ohio State was going to lose up until today. Scared? No. Anxious? Very much so. Nervous?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Scared? No.
I've never really been scared of Ohio State. I think the last time I was scared for Ohio State to play a football game was,
I don't remember when.
2014 Ohio State Alabama. I was scared about that one. But I'm not scared of our team playing this game. I'm more so anxious to see how we look and what we do. That's where I'm anxious.
I'm definitely more anxious too, and I'm just because, and I've said this several times, I think these are the two most talented teams. I really, really do. And when two talented teams go at it, then it typically comes down to something like coaching. And you talked about last week how you were, talking about Dan Lanning out coaching Ryan Day, because, he did do that in that first matchup. And we've seen over the years how Ryan Day has handled big games.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say he's passed those tests with flying colors. So that is something that makes me anxious. The special teams make me anxious. I'm not scared of anything. If Ohio State loses this game, I won't be as pissed off as I was if I would have been had they lost to Tennessee, because I did not think Tennessee was good. I didn't think they were good. Oregon's good. Oregon's really damn good. If they lose this game, they lost to the better team.
Yep. I'll make it. I'll be plain and simple about it.
Yep.
I'll be plain and simple about it. Well, real quick. So I was just gonna say this real quick. Burks, I know you like to troll in here. You're lucky that I'm a man of the people, and probably Ryan wouldn't like. So, but I was gonna let you up. But if you want to come up, we'll let you up. Even though, but relax.
Yeah. So, I find this interesting. This comment from Derek: the winner of this game will win by 14. I don't see anything like that. I don't see this being a blowout in either direction.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily like. I want to ask Derek this: when you say 14, do you mean like a very comfortable 14, or you scored at the end of the game 14 to make sure that the team doesn't come back to beat you? Because I think those are two different types of 14. If you're telling me like Ohio State's up by 21 points and then Oregon scores at the end of the game, I'll say, hell no, that's not happening. Like I said, I have like, did I read you all of these teams average and like scoring wise and what they give up? Did I read that out to you? I don't think I did.
No, I don't think you did.
All right, so and this is why I think it's completely. I'll get to it real quick, and then I'll go on my little rant for you.
Okay, Derek says a comfortable 14. That was his caveat to this. He's saying comfortable 14.
All right, so Ohio State averages 36 points a game on the dot. Oregon averages 35.9. Ohio State gives up 11.4 points per game. They give up about a touchdown more at 17.8. There's no way anybody's blowing anybody out in this game. And it's like, So I was watching the Cater cast, and Dylan on there, who is I call him a perpetual Ohio State hater. He has Oregon winning, and I would say this for any Ohio State fan that has this, but he has Oregon winning 40. He said 42-17.
That's insanity.
And I just like when I hear shit like that, dude, I just can't understand it.
Yeah,
because there's no data point you can point to that would say that's gonna happen. I would be very surprised if anyone won this game by more than 14. 14 would be the cap. That would be the cap for me.
And look, if Ohio State ends up winning this game by 14, I mean, I'm going to be hooting and hollering. You know, that'd be great, obviously. I think if Ohio State, like you, I would be shocked if there's any sort of blowout from either side. I have too much respect for what Oregon has done this season to think that would happen. Like, to have an Oregon, someone predict 42-17, that's insanity. I mean, that's what we just did to Tennessee. Obviously, both of these teams are miles better than Tennessee. So I think it's going to be a close game throughout. Now, let me tell you this: if Ohio State wins by 14 and a comfortable 14, like Derek says, then I think we're winning the national championship. Then
if that happens,
the cruise.
If that happens, man, I'll be running around my house drunk, half naked, happy. I would be too happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening. And he says he could see the Ducks getting too emotional and blowing it. I don't really see them getting emotional per se. I quite frankly, I would be shocked if Oregon, quote unquote, blew it.
How do you feel about them being about a month off?
They are the rare team that I don't think it's going to affect as much.
I agree,
because they're not necessarily a rhythm offense. You know what I mean? They don't predicate, the scoring isn't predicated on them getting into a rhythm early and then all of a sudden they're really good after that. They're a good offense, save for the Wisconsin game. They're a good offense at any point. Like, all of a sudden, if they start off slow, they can still rip off 21 points quickly. So I think there might be like a slight bit of rust, but I'm not going to I would be shocked if Oregon was scoreless in the first quarter. I would truly be shocked just because I think they're a good team. I mean, what do you think? I don't think I actually think it probably helped them to have that rest more than the rest is going to hurt them.
I agree. I mean, towards the end of the season, I think they played 8 games in a row before they had the break before the Big Ten championship game.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think that I was in a space where it was my guy, Mr. Grim 503. Everyone go follow him. A cool Oregon fan, but he's worried about the rest. Like, he's worried about it. I think Dan Lanning is going to have those guys ready, and like one of my favorite quotes ever from Dan Lanning, rooted in substance, and that's why I think they are. I think sometimes, and it's not like Oregon's going to be one of the greatest teams we've ever seen, but they are a veteran team. They have adults in the room on that team, and they're about business, and so I don't think it's gonna. And I would assume that those guys have been hitting in practice, making sure they've been getting ready. I think they've had an illness. They said over the last week or last game they had against Penn State, and it's carried into this week. Don't care to hear that. But no, I don't think that rest is gonna hurt them.
I agree. And I agree with pretty much everything you said about the fact that they've got a lot of quote unquote adults in the room. They've, they won the Big Ten championship. They've already played in big games. I don't think that they're, they've been practicing. And let's say if it was like Tennessee had the bye and they were coming in rusty, then hell yeah, I think that would affect them. But Oregon, they got a lot of veteran guys. I mean, this is Gabriel's 6th year of college football. He knows what the deal is. Man needs to get a job. He's I don't expect that to affect him at all.
He's gonna be a great CFL. He's gonna be a great CFL quarterback.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I think it's going to come down to whether or not Ohio State is going to be able to have answers for him defensively when the game gets close.
Right.
So, I mean, do you think the odds of, obviously you mentioned you changed your score to Ohio State 33, Oregon 31. I don't think I've wavered from my score. The initial thought was 38-35 Ohio State. I could see it also being Oregon 38, Ohio State 35. I could see those scores flipped, but I think that's I think it's going to be kind of that higher scoring game that I think is going to happen. What do you think there's a bigger chance of it being a blowout? Like Derek was talking, 14 points, or a low scoring affair where it's like a 21-14 kind of deal.
A blowout. I think it's more like for a blowout to happen. But I think for that to happen, like you said earlier, you're talking about turnovers, probably a very important injury. I think if either one of these, knock on wood, I think if any one of these quarterbacks got injured, it's a lot. That game is over. Yeah. The game is over. Even if Devin Brown came in, the game is over.
No, I agree. And let's not hope for any injuries because obviously last time these two teams played, Ohio State had a major injury.
Probably the biggest injury of the season.
Yeah, big problem. So, we've talked a lot about this game, and we'll wrap up later with ending with this game. But I want to hear your thoughts on more of the other games, if anything's changed for you, because I know you talked about some of these games being blowouts and some of them not. So, I want to start with the game tomorrow night. Penn State, Boise State. What do you think is going to happen in that game?
Belt to ass. I don't.
So your thoughts have not changed?
No, I tweeted about this earlier because I've seen there's a lot of people that think Boise is going to challenge them. I saw some people just saying Boise is going to beat them. And I tweeted out, I said, I think there's a very big misconception about Penn State football. And that maybe because they're not Ohio State or Michigan or in this year or Oregon, a lot of people don't pay attention to Penn State that much or that often. I think I would be correct in saying they're one of the 10 to 15 most talented teams in the country.
So you're not worried about James Franklin and his propensity to poop his pants in big games because
nope.
I think this is a big game.
The same way I wasn't last week. I said they were going to smack SMU. I was right, and they're going to come out and do the same. If you think you're going to go out there
at home,
yeah, sure, and I feel the same way now. If you think you're going to go in there and just run the ball in Penn State, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And here's the other part about it. Boise State's outside of their pass rush, they suck on defense. They suck. I'll give you a prediction. Tyler Warren is going to have 150 total yards in this game. Plus.
That's a lot of yards.
Plus. I think he's going to go crazy in this game. I think he will. I don't think there's anything that this. And then on top of that, I know we disagree on Max Madsen. This would
I don't. He's no world beater. Let me make that clear.
Yeah, but I mean, they haven't seen Boise State. This will be the best defense Boise State has seen all year.
I agree with that.
They are not. This isn't Oregon. This isn't like Oregon. You catch them early in the season. They're not. You're not going to get the 30 on them. I had this game. What did I say? Oh no, they're not getting the 30 points. I picked this game 40 to.
Oregon just had 45. They just dropped 45 on them.
That's Oregon.
Okay.
Oregon.
The spread right now is 11. I think that's way too high for this game. I actually think this game's going to be close.
I picked this game. I think what I tell Bryce 40 to no, I said 38 to like 14 or 17. I don't think they have, dude. They don't have it. They have a snowball in hell's chance. They have a snowball in hell's chance to win.
I think yesterday I picked the game. I took Boise State. I took them 31-24.
Oh no.
And
you think that defense is holding Penn State to 24 points? Or you thought that?
No, I don't think the defense is going to be doing that. I think Penn State's going to have a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this game. This is the kind of game where I could see Drew Aller tightening up. I could see James Franklin tightening up as well. And I don't think they're going to necessarily be able to execute the game plan the way that they want to. I think Boise State is going to be able to run the ball better than what you think they are. Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in college football for a reason. I'm not going to sit here and say I think Madsen's going to throw for like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns because I do not see that happening.
Right.
But I could see Boise State's defense making a big time interception, and Boise State's only got to drive the ball 25, 30 yards for a touchdown. They don't necessarily need to have long sustained drives, I think, to win this game. Now, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State won this game. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all. They're also a really good team. But there's going to be upsets at some point in this college football playoff. And even though Boise State is the 3 seed, they're 11-point underdogs. I think this is the upset we get. What do you think about the Texas-Arizona State game? That's the first game on New Year's Day. The run up before right up to the Ohio State's the lead up game. Right now, the latest odds have Texas as a 12.5-point favorite. What do you think is going to happen?
I think Arizona State covers that. And if there was because Georgia's the favorite, right, in their game?
Georgia, they have changed to be a favorite. They are now a 1-point favorite.
Well, all right, that wouldn't even call that a favorite or an underdog. I think of the two matchups, I think are real underdog stories. This is the one I believe could be an upset. This is the one.
See, that's interesting because I actually think this is I think this might actually be a cover for Texas. I don't think Arizona State. My thoughts have changed a little bit. Talk about Arizona, Boise State, how they really attack teams by running the ball and they don't throw it, as well. It's kind of the same thing with Arizona State with Cam Scatterbu. He is their main weapon. Texas's defense, they can shut down the running game. Look, I did not compare Boise State's offense to Oregon. Let me just make that clear. Oregon is the best offense in college football right now. But, I'm not comparing them. But Arizona State, I think, is going to struggle a little bit. And even if Quinn Ewers doesn't play his best game, I can see Texas winning this game by like 14. I don't think it might even be a late cover. I don't think this game's going to be out of hand like the whole time. I think I could see Texas just kind of bleeds the clock there at the end and they punch it in the end zone to get that, second touch, get that 14-point cover. Right. And then they end up winning the game. But I do think this game's competitive.
Yeah, I have a lot of worries after what I saw in that first Texas game against Clemson. Clemson hasn't been able to really pass the ball all year. They looked elite in that game, which I was surprised by because Texas has a good secondary, and maybe that's just the exception, not the rule. That can be very factual. And also, Clemson was in a situation where they just had to throw the ball. But Clemson was also still able to run the ball in that game. And Arizona State has one of the best backs in college football. Not only is it 1,500 rushing, 500 receiving, and Scatterbo. So Scatterbo. So do I think Texas is gonna win? Yes, but I think they're gonna have to fight for it, and also because I just.
What helps now is also they're going to have Isaiah Bond back. They get Isaiah Bond back for this game.
Yeah, but the problem is your quarterback doesn't look right. Like Quinn doesn't look right, and but I just have to assume, or smartly assume that Texas is going to find a way to win this game. I just don't. I think they're gonna like maybe they do cover in the fourth quarter, but I think for at least 3 quarters they're gonna be fighting for their lives.
Okay. What about that last game, that Notre Dame Georgia game? Like I told you, Georgia's a 1-point favorite right now.
Notre Dame's winning that football game.
I agree with you.
I get when I do understand when people say that who has Notre Dame played and but I'm not. I think it would be dishonest to sit here and act like we all don't know Notre Dame has a lot of talent. Like I just they have one of the best secondaries in college football, one of the best safeties in college football, one of the best corners in college football, really good defensive line. I think even though their nose tackle is going to be out, really good linebackers who are athletic and fast and they're big. And then I think the problem for Georgia is that they're going against a team that kind of mirrors Georgia Tech, only better.
Yeah. Riley Leonard's an upgraded Haynes King.
Yes, and I can't think of I don't know Georgia Tech's running back name, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I would take Love over him.
I'd take Jeremiah Love, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So that's a problem. And on the other side, Georgia's run game hasn't been lights out all season. Your defense has been on and off. And then here's the biggest thing for me. You're playing a quarterback who I don't believe in, who hasn't shown much. There's not a lot of tape on him, but for the half that he was in, he couldn't really throw the ball. And he's playing against with the wide receiver unit that has the most drops in college football.
That's the stat I was going to point to as well.
That's a recipe for disaster. This is going to be the biggest game of this kid's life. He's not much of a passer. He can run the ball, but he's not much of a passer. But your wide receivers have bricks for hands.
If Notre Dame gets up in this game, it's going to be really hard for Georgia to come back.
Sure.
if Notre Dame's up 10 points at any point, it might be over. Just because of the fact that they're going to have to trust those wide receivers. I mean, Arian Smith's a walking drop. Like, that dude just can't catch the football.
And no, it's funny because, no one can keep up with Arian Smith. No one.
Yeah.
But he can be wide open and just...
That's exactly. And Notre Dame's offensive line is underrated too. Now, they don't have the skill guys on the outside that a lot of other teams do. And Riley Leonard isn't the most polished passer in the college football playoff, but I think he does enough. And with he uses his legs a lot more than other quarterbacks do. And with the offensive line that they have, they can afford to do that. And, when he does throw the ball, they scheme it up well where it's in play action, where they get him in comfortable spots, where he throws comfortable routes that he is used to throwing. So it's not like he's going to have to make really tight throws over the middle a lot. He's going to be throwing routes that he has been, that are kind of ingrained in his brain from all of his time in college football. They're not asking him to do anything special. They're just, hey, find the open guy. If he's not open, if the guy on your first or second read's not open, take off and just go.
What do you think? Yeah, go back to what you said earlier. What do you think is the threshold for Georgia? Like, it can't go down by how many?
I think 10 is probably that magic number. I think they can tie it up at 10. I don't think they can come back and take the lead if they're down by 10, especially if it's in the second half. I hesitate. The only reason why I think it's not larger than that is because Georgia will have a home field advantage in this game because it is down south.
I hate that. I hate that the Georgia Dome is a bowl game. It's
a lot of,
and they play there. They play there a lot.
We can talk about how a lot of the bowl games are in the Southeast. They've got the Orange Bowl down there. The Sugar Bowl. In New Orleans. The Peach Bowl there. It's
It's a weather thing, but. In the NFL, it don't matter there.
That's right.
Because I've always heard the argument. Oh yeah, but if you play the game in the cold weather places, it hurts the product. Not in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's football.
All right, so we'll wrap up here by one final prediction with our game, and also I'm really glad this is the 5:00 game. Gets me time to, we get an appetizer before, but I'm also not sitting around all day waiting for the game to come.
No, I get. Dude, my stomach starts to hurt when I do that.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I want a final prediction from you and also an MVP in the game.
I like that. All right, yeah. So final score: Ohio State 33, Oregon 31. I think Oregon. At some point, I think Ohio State takes like a 10-point lead, and then Oregon scores again to try and close the gap, and then the game just ends because it ends. I just think the game is over. Whether that be 5 seconds left or 10 minutes left, I think the game is going to end there because I think Ohio State's going to try and run the ball, and then that puts Oregon in a situation where they have to pass it. And I think for Ohio State, when they know that you have to pass the ball, they can pin their ears back and play cover 3 or cover 4, whatever they want to do. And then MVP. I'm going to go with Tyleik Williams.
Interesting.
I think I think with the interior of their O-line, specifically from right guard to center, being their weakness, I think if Tyleik Williams can take advantage of that, kind of play like the way he did against Tennessee in most games this season, and actually had a few moments in the first Oregon game, I think if he can do that, that'll bode well for Ohio State.
I like it. So, I said earlier, I think I'm going to stick to my prediction, 38-35, Ohio State. That's just Ohio State's offense really showed me something against Tennessee specific to the play calling, where I'm not afraid that they're going to play scared. Like, they're not going to call scared anymore. So they're going to go down swinging. Whether it works or not, we'll find out. But they're not going to try to run the ball up the middle 20 times and then, not try to do anything else like they did against Michigan. Like, I'm more confident in the play calling now. For my MVP, I actually think it's going to be Travion Henderson. And that's not someone I would have picked really even 2 weeks ago. But after rewatching some of the film against Tennessee,
you're a hater, bro.
No, I'm not a hater.
I'm joking.
But what he showed there at the end of Tennessee, and it wasn't just him, the offensive line got out and moved in space and was able to block a little bit better, which I think is going to be a large part of this as well. But Henderson also, he ran with more anger. We talked about earlier how Will Howard said that the team came out angry with a chip on their shoulder. I saw that in his running. And I think he's going to do something similar in this game. And I think, he was by far the more effective back against Tennessee. He had 10 carries for 80 yards. Quinshon Judkins only had 10 for 34. Now,
he has some good runs in the game, though. He has some good runs in the game.
Sure, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be that kind of lopsided as far as the yardage difference between the two. But, Henderson has actually stayed healthy this year. And that's not something we've seen in the past. He's fresher because because Ohio State has been able to share carries, So I could see him running for over 100 yards in this game, a couple of touchdowns, and really being the X factor for a team that honestly plays better when they throw the ball more. But I think in this game, they're going to be more of a throw the ball to open up the run kind of team, not the opposite.
As they should have been doing.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else you want to cover here before we get out of here?
No, man, that's it for me.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll come back to you on Thursday. It'll be a primetime live show, not a call-in show, because we will be discussing everything that happens with the game. And hopefully we will be coming to you live with smiles on our faces as opposed to scowls, because we'll be celebrating an Ohio State victory. But we'll be back 8 o'clock on Thursday. And until then, OH.
I-O.